Well, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Where's my roller skates? Clear the dance floor. Oh, come on. Give me a couple seconds of your time for some fun. We got time for fun. President Perpetual Motion didn't get his Nobel Peace Prize. Maybe next year. Just like the doggone Philadelphia Phillies. They got too many white guys on that team. They need some Dominicans, some Cubans. Come on.
Double Dutch bus coming down the street. Moving dirty fast, so gotta shuffle no beats. Get out the
Oh, yeah. Oh, you can't tell me that don't feel good. Welcome to the Comparison Guy Podcast.
Here it comes. The double Dutch bus is on the street. You better get off the car. Move your
We got no time. We got no time for foolishness. We got to get down to business. Oh, let me just say this before I get started on the shutdown. I don't care about Bad Bunny performing at the Super Bowl. I don't care about Bad Bunny performing in Spanish at the Super Bowl. Kendrick Lamar performed last year in English, and I didn't understand a word Kendrick Lamar said. So what do I care about Bad Bunny performing in Spanish? I'm not going to understand a word he's saying either, but I bet you he'll have some better backup dancers. I promise you that. He's going to bring those long-legged, pretty Hispanic backup dancers. That's what I'll be tuning in for. But let's get down to business with this shutdown. Let me ask you a question. A very simple question. What is the job of the media? What's the job of the media? I think some might say to inform, to provide information. If you agree with that, then can you please explain this clip to me? Listen to this.
However slowly it's working, and because we have limited time, I'm sorry for cutting you off, but bottom line, should families plan on paying more next year for health care?
Boy, I hope not. I mean, we're working to bring costs down. We did that. We demonstrated it in the Working Families Tax Cut, the One Big Beautiful Bill, where we didn't cut Medicaid. We shored it up. We supported it. Why? Because we eliminated fraud, waste, and abuse. And don't take my word for it. Look at the CBO's analysis. The Congressional Budget Office says we're going to save $185 billion just in waste and abuse, which is going to make the program work better for the people who depend upon it.
They also say millions of Americans will lose access to Medicaid because of that. But I want to stay focused.
Not Americans, illegal aliens, and able-bodied workers. I think we both know that that's a misleading point here, because this is talking about people with legal status, not people who are here illegally. Not true. Remember that under the 4 years of the Biden administration, when they opened the border wide and we had about 20 million illegal aliens come into the country, they just granted a asylum and parole status to everybody. Recognize what you're saying, but it's people who were granted asylum or parole, and so they were working through the process legally. But I want to get you on. We can debate that at length. Yeah, we could debate it at length, and if you want to stick around, I'm more than happy to do it. I wish I could. But you've invoked the president a few times now. He looms so large over this.
That's the argument. That's the whole argument. Basically, at least it's the main talking point that the Republicans are putting out. That the Democrats want to extend subsidies, health care, whatever you want to call it, for people who are in the country illegally. She pushes back and says, no, I think we both know that's misleading. Okay, why? Why is it misleading? You see, this is a major problem that I have, and I know a lot of people are not going to like me saying. But these are the same people who get so upset about people being misinformed. The same exact people who will be upset with me saying, no, she has to stop right there and explain why what Speaker Mike Johnson is saying is not true. That is her job. She is in the media. Her job is not to sit there and brush away a point because she knows it to not be true. She knows it. Everyone doesn't know it. Everyone doesn't know why it's not true. No matter how much of a waste of time you think it might be, that is your job as the media, to inform. I don't know why it's not true. I don't know why. I don't know exactly why. I've heard the quick little, that's ridiculous, that's not true, it's misleading, it's a lie, it's Republicans playing to... I've heard everything that the left has said about it, and I just keep hearing the right repeat it over and over again. They just keep repeating it. Everyone that goes on. When they're asked about the shutdown, what's going on? Well, the Democrats want to extend healthcare benefits to people who are in the country illegally. That's all they say. That's all the detail I get from the Republicans. On the left, all the detail I get from the Democrats, that's not true. Well, I need more than that, because if I can understand it, if I can know exactly why it's not true, I can come here and the 3 people that listen to me, they can then understand why it's not true. But just imagine if Ali Vitale, who has more than the 3 listeners I have, maybe has 1 million people watching her during that segment. Just imagine if she had explained why that's not true to 1 million people. Now 1 million people can go out and they can explain why that's not true. That's what you call informing people. Why are you complaining that people are misinformed, and when you have an opportunity to inform people, you brush it aside? I'm going to play this again. I'm going to play that clip again so you can hear what she says, exactly how she says it, and what Mike Johnson's response to it is. I'm going to play it again and understand. We just can't keep doing this. We can't keep doing this lazy form of media, and I'm not going to do it. I'm going to explain to you exactly what they both are talking about. I'm going to do her job for her. I'm going to do her job for her. I'm going to explain exactly what the discrepancy is. Why does he sound so convinced he's right? Why does she sound so convinced she's right? They both can't be right, can they? No. So I'm going to explain it. I'm going to do what the media should have been doing for these past 2 weeks on this issue. Holy smokes. I just commented to somebody on Spotify where this clip is up. Somebody praising Ali Vitale for what she did in that interview with Mike Johnson. I said, look, I respectfully disagree. And I do mean respectfully. I'm not saying that to patronize anybody. I'm saying, look, I get where you're coming from, but from my point of view, no, she did not do a good job. She did not do a good job. What she did was she presented information the way that people do when they go, I know something, so I know enough. I know something about this, so I know enough. And if I know enough, that means you know enough, so I can move on. The people watching know enough. They get it. I can move on. Well, what did she move on to that was so important? That's the other point I want to make before I go back and I start talking about why the discrepancy and playing that clip again. What did she have to be in such a rush to move on to because she had limited time that she couldn't discuss the main freaking issue that's got this government shut down? She moved on to the Epstein files and she moved on to Trump's memes. Trump putting out memes of Democrats wearing sombreros and whatever, somebody being the Grim Reaper. That's what she moved on to. Asking him questions about the Epstein files, when you're going to swear in as Democrat, which that is important, but more so, when are we going to get the Epstein files? When are we going to get that released? And does it make it harder for you, Speaker Johnson, to do your job when Trump is tweeting out memes of Democrats wearing sombreros? Complete and total waste of time. That's what she had to rush on to. That's what she had to gloss over the debate, the discrepancy they were having over whether or not this is about illegal immigrants getting health care. The main issue that shut the government down, she spent the least amount of time on. She spent way more time talking to him about Epstein files and stupid Trump memes than the doggone thing that's got the government shut down, explaining that to people so people can understand it. I'm going to play it. I want you to listen with the understanding. This is what they're talking about. Republicans are saying Democrats are trying to give health care to undocumented people in the country, correct? What Speaker Johnson is saying, if you listen, under Joe Biden, there were millions of people who were given temporary parole status in the country. Now, don't think of parole as in jail, let out of jail, put on parole. That's not what it means. That's not what he's talking about under this circumstance. Parole status, and I'm going to put this up, by the way. I'll put this up on YouTube as I'm talking about this too, so you can fact check me on this. The parole status that was given were programs put in place by the Biden administration to allow people to legally come to the country. Okay? People from Venezuela, Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, countries like that. They gave temporary legal status for those people to come to the country. Some of those people, because they were in the country legally under the program, were able to get health care. They were able to qualify for Medicaid. So Ali Vitale is pushing back saying, no, they were not illegal. They were legal because they came here legally. They were given temporary legal status. What is Mike Johnson's pushback and the Republicans' pushback to that? Yeah, but they never should have been given that temporary legal status. What Joe Biden did was illegal. It is in the courts. It was challenged in the courts. Donald Trump undid the program, and the Supreme Court backed Donald Trump on undoing the program that was put in place that allowed this. So therefore, this is the argument. Look, I hope you're listening. This is informative. This is not saying who's right and who's wrong. This is what the media should do. The media should give you the information. It shouldn't change your mind one way or the other, how you feel. You have your opinion. You should have the information to form a good opinion. So what Republicans are saying is what Joe Biden did was illegal. That therefore made the people who were given the temporary legal status illegal. Illegal. In the country illegally. Those people, because they're in the country illegally, cannot get health care. You following me? It'll make it way easier. If you look on YouTube, I will put these articles, I will put these fact checks, the information up, and you can read it as I'm speaking about it. Okay? It'll make it way easier to understand, I think, if you're reading it at the same time. So let's go back and let's listen to what they're saying with that understanding of what we're talking about.
We're going to save $185 billion just in waste and abuse, which is going to make the program work better for the people who depend upon it.
They also say millions of Americans will lose access to Medicaid because of that. But I want to stay focused.
Not Americans, illegal aliens and able-bodied workers. I think we both know
that that's a misleading point here because this is talking about people with legal status, not people who are here illegally.
Not true. Remember that under the 4 years of the Biden administration, when they opened the border wide and we had about 20 million illegal aliens come into the country, they just granted asylum and parole status.
I recognize what you're saying, but it's people who were granted asylum or parole, and so they were working through the process legally. But I want to get you on.
We can debate that at length. Yeah,
we could debate it at length, and if you want us to.
So here's the thing, and this is why this podcast is not for everyone, and I respect that and I understand that. But this matters to me. If it doesn't matter to other people, it matters to me. Ali Vitale is like someone who's baked a cake all of her life. That's what she does. She bakes cakes. And you go to her and you say, hey, Ali, can you explain to me how to bake a cake? And she says to you, oh, yeah, sure. It's easy. You just take the ingredients, you pour them into a bowl, you mix them up, then you dump that into a cake pan, then you shove it in the oven, and then a few minutes later, you take it out, you got yourself a cake. Now, she gave you information. Sure she did. But you know good and well, that's not good enough. That is not good enough. We have way too many people walking around this country going, I know something, so I know enough. That's not good enough. Just saying, Mike Johnson, we both know you're misleading about that. That's not good enough. What are the ingredients I put in that bowl? How long do I mix those ingredients up? Do they have to be completely without lumps? Is it okay if there's a few lumps? What's a cake pan? Where the heck do I get that? What temperature should I set the oven? I need to know exactly how long to cook that cake for. Don't just give me a random. There's information and detail that needs to be explained. Now, we all know politics. A lot of stuff is nonsense. But this is the main talking point of Republicans. This is the main talking point they've been running with for almost 2 weeks now, that the Democrats are trying to give health care to illegal immigrants. So this is not something to brush off. How many times do I have to say it? If I'm someone who's been sitting and watching Fox News all week, and so I'm misinformed about this point, tell me where to go to get informed. Tell me where to go to get informed. The same people who will tell me I'm wrong for getting so upset about this and the job that she did in questioning Mike Johnson are the same people who will call people misinformed. You big idiot. You big idiot. You're misinformed. You don't know what's going on. You're a low information voter. You don't get the information. Where can I get it? I'm not going to get it on Fox. You'll tell me that. I probably won't get it on CNN. You'll tell me they're two in the middle. So here I am. I'm on MSNBC. We got Speaker Mike Johnson in the chair. We got an opportunity to question him. We asked him the question. He gives the answer. And then we want to move on. We want to hurry up and move on. I can see if she wanted to move on to other things that were really pressing issues. But no, she moves on to Jeffrey Epstein, the Epstein files, and she moves on to Trump memes. The Trump stupid sombrero wearing Democrat memes. Why? Why, comparison group? Well, I can only assume it's because the Democratic liberal media still believes for the 5,967,000,000,011th time they can say to a Republican leadership, ain't Trump crazy? Ain't Trump crazy? And they expect that Republican to say back to them, yeah, it's really disgusting and racist and deplorable him sending out that meme with Democrats wearing sombreros. I'm going to tell him that ends today. No more of that. He will never, ever, from this day forward, tweet another offensive meme if I have anything to do with it. I guess that's the answer they're waiting for. They're going to keep on asking that, ain't Trump crazy? Ain't Trump? They're going to keep on asking that question to a Republican. So I have to question, I have to ask, is Ali Vitale asking that question for the benefit of the viewer? The independent viewer out there? Or is she asking that question for herself? Because she doesn't want to get criticized for not confronting Mike Johnson on that issue. Which one is it for? Is it to get information to the viewer, valuable information to the viewer, so they can make smart decisions and understand what's going on in Washington, D.C.? Or is it more, I just want to make sure when I get on my Twitter account later, I don't get a flood of people complaining, how come you didn't ask Mike Johnson this? You see, that's the problem. That's the problem with some of the people we have in the media and with the media we have today. They're worried about the criticism they're going to get later on their social media if they don't ask a question that people are so thirsty that she asked a question about. Stuff that don't matter. Well, how do you think he answered the question on the Epstein files? Oh, we're going to release those files, and you're going to be surprised. Donald Trump's name is in there. Oh, you think that's what Mike Johnson said? No, you know exactly what Mike Johnson said. Oh, well, we're very interested in transparency, and we're very interested, and we want to release those files as soon as possible. The Department of Justice is going through the process right now of redacting names, and that's the only thing holding up. And when that Democrat who is waiting to be sworn in at Congress gets sworn in, she's going to be the deciding vote to release, and we're going to. Waste of time. No information, nothing new, nothing groundbreaking, nothing earth-shattering, no breaking news. But she felt the need to rush through the question about undocumented immigrants getting health care to get to those questions. And she had the winning argument. If she had just taken the time, taken a minute, said, Speaker Mike Johnson, even if what you're saying is true, Joe Biden put these programs in place, allowed people to come to the country and gave them temporary legal status. They're still under those programs was a 5-year waiting period to qualify to get benefits like Medicaid. Do you understand exactly what I'm saying? She could have said to him, as Mike Johnson is saying, oh, no, you're wrong. It's not Americans that are going to lose coverage. It's waste, fraud, and abuse. It's these people that Joe Biden allowed to come into the country illegally. Ali Vitale on MSNBC could have said, Speaker Johnson, even if what you said is true, that Joe Biden allowed millions to come to the country under a parole program that allowed them to access benefits like Medicaid, those programs included a 5-year waiting period before people could even apply for those benefits. Here it is. Read it in black and white. I'll put it up on YouTube. So the CHNV program that was started in October of 2022 for Venezuelans, it was expanded in January of 2023 for Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans. So that means most people probably started in that program, came to the country in 2023. That means they would not have even been eligible for benefits until 2028. Not even eligible to apply for benefits until 2028. So, do you want to explain? This is what you could say, Speaker Johnson. Do you want to explain how Democrats are spending billions on health benefits that aren't even available to people for another 3 years? I mean, call me crazy, but I think it would be worthwhile to take the time to point that fact out. If she had just taken the time, if she had just not assumed, well, people out there, they know something, so they know enough. They know something, so they know enough. They don't need to know this information. There's a 5-year waiting period for people who came into the country under the Biden administration under those programs. The amount of people who would have qualified to get Medicaid or get health care under those programs with exemptions was minuscule. Minuscule, next to nothing. She had the winning argument, but she didn't even bother to take the time to make it. Why? Because she had to make sure she rushed off to get to nonsense. You tell me I'm wrong. You tell me that's good media. You tell me where to go to get informed if I'm misinformed. If we can't count on Fox, we can't count on CNN, and doggone it, we can't even count on MSNBC to make the winning argument that they have to make. I don't know how you praise somebody in media who does that. And to make matters worse, after she failed to get the information in the 5 or 6 minutes that she had, they then go back to Huckleberry Joe, because this is a clip from Morning Joe. They go back to Huckleberry Joe, and then they all sit around the table and they don't give you the information. Now, they don't have 5 or 6 minutes. They got 3 hours. They got 3 hours to fill. And in 3 hours, they don't give you the information I'm about to give you in 40 minutes on this stupid podcast. On a stupid podcast by somebody who knows nothing, who knew nothing going into this. Starting this day, I had to go on Google, and I had to Google, and I had to ask the questions, and I had to get the information that I can now give you. That's what I had to do. In other words, as I said, do their job. Do their job to provide the information to you in about 40 to 50 minutes. And they haven't been able to do that in 2 weeks with 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. They haven't been able to provide the information I'm about to provide you in 45 to 50 minutes. You praise media that does that? And we wonder why people are misinformed in this country? We wonder why people exist in their own bubbles in this country. We wonder why people exist with their own set of facts in this country. What's the use? So let's understand what it was all about, since this is the argument. How many immigrants did Joe Biden parole into the country? Again, parole, let into the country. An estimated 2.8 million, this is up on YouTube, undocumented individuals were paroled into the U.S. during the Biden administration. We can go down and we can take a look at the programs that they were talking about. You had the CHNV. I think that's probably the most controversial one. Maybe the CBP One app. That's pretty controversial. Got talked about a lot too. But the CHNV program, as I said, people from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, Venezuela. It authorized the entry of over 530,000 individuals from these countries through August 2024. The program was paused in July 2024 following an internal review that uncovered widespread fraud. So you see what I'm talking about? You see why getting the information is important? Once again, all of this will not change your viewpoint, I don't believe. If you're on the left, if you're on the right, this information will not change your viewpoint, but you should have the information. The program was paused for widespread fraud. Now, that's the case that Speaker Johnson is making. He's saying you cannot provide legal services to someone who is in the country illegally. And if they came into the country illegally, whether or not the program they came in under was a legal program, if the program turned out to be illegal, then they turned out to be in the country illegally. If the courts rule the program was not legal and constitutional, therefore the people who came in under the program are not legal. They do not have legal status. Ali Vitale and the Democrats are arguing they did have legal status. That's just one program. 500,000 people. Then you got the CBP One app. As of early 2024, more than 422,000 migrants used the app to schedule appointments at ports of entry. By the end of 2024, approximately 980,000 individuals had received parole through this process. 1 million people had received parole through this process. In other words, were allowed to enter the country. Then you got the Afghan and Ukrainian settlement, which I don't think anyone is going to make too big a deal out of either one of those. Maybe the Ukrainian resettlement. You have 651,000 individuals, it says. The 133,000 individuals from Afghan, those are people who helped us out during the Afghan war. So I don't think people are going to make too much of a big deal out of that. Then you had parole in place for spouses. Listen, 500,000 undocumented spouses of U.S. citizens and 50,000 of their children. Okay. I mean, listen, it's a fair amount of people. You're talking almost 3 million people who were granted temporary legal status in the country, and once again, therefore, could access benefits as legal people in the country under these programs that a lot of people will tell you they didn't think were constitutional. They thought it was overreach by Biden. Because understand, the purpose of these programs, it's supposed to be humanitarian relief in the case of emergencies. And so the Biden administration argued that the people coming from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, Venezuela, they were fleeing conditions that allowed for humanitarian relief in emergency situation, emergency circumstance. Now, the CBP One app, 1 million people coming in that way, was it humanitarian? Was it emergency? I don't know. The Afghan and Ukrainian settlement, was it humanitarian? Was it emergency? I think you can make an argument, sure, on that. The parole in place for spouses, 500,000 undocumented spouses, 50,000 children, humanitarian, emergency? I don't know. It's the question. It's the argument. You see how information is good? You see how information strengthens your argument? You see how information helps to clarify things? Makes you seem like maybe you know a little bit better what the heck you're talking about? So yes, Mike Johnson is not incorrect when he says that there are people in the country, gray area, legally, illegally. Once again, there are people who say there ain't no gray area. There ain't no gray area. They came under a program created by the Biden administration. People say that program was illegal, never should have been created. So let's just call it a gray area, legally or illegally. Yes, they can get Medicaid. Let's not have any confusion over it. But there's a 5-year waiting period. So in other words, someone cannot just show up from Venezuela, be granted a temporary legal status in the United States, and walk into the Medicaid office and apply for benefits. It doesn't work that way. That's important to know. And you can see this screenshot, it runs through all other types of information that's good to know. The standard eligibility, 5-year waiting period, qualified status, state-specific requirements, exceptions and other considerations, emergency Medicaid. You can go to the emergency room. Anybody can. Anyone can go to the emergency room, pregnancy-related coverage. All of this stuff matters. But you also have state-specific rules. Oh, look at that. You have state-specific rules. Well, let's take a look at that. I wonder what states offer any kind of Medicaid or health care to undocumented immigrants. Let's take a look. I'll put up the screenshot. This is on YouTube. In the U.S., no state offers blanket free health care to all undocumented immigrants. But several states and the District of Columbia provide state-funded health coverage to certain groups regardless of immigration status. Eligibility is often based on age, income level, or specific criteria. Undocumented immigrants are ineligible for federally funded health care programs like Medicaid, Medicare, and Affordable Care. That's what we keep hearing, right? That's the pushback. When Republicans say Democrats want to give health care to undocumented immigrants, the immediate pushback is, no, that's a lie. Undocumented immigrants are ineligible for federally funded health care programs like Medicaid. Case closed. Move on, right? Well, not so much. Not so much. States offering some form of state-funded health coverage to income-eligible adults include California, Colorado, Illinois, Minnesota, New York, Oregon, Washington, and the District of Columbia. Many states, such as California, Colorado, Illinois, New York, also provide health coverage to undocumented children and pregnant individuals. So what's the immediate pushback? The immediate pushback if you're on the right. If the federal government is providing you $1 billion to your state to cover your citizens for health care, let's just say for Medicaid. I'll just throw that number out there. I have no idea if that number is even relative to anything. But let's just say the federal government, $1 billion to the state or to District of Columbia to cover citizens for Medicaid. And the District of Columbia is spending $100 billion to provide health care through their state program for undocumented immigrants. What's the immediate pushback? The immediate pushback is, if you weren't spending that $100 million on the undocumented people, we would only have to give you $900 million instead of $1 billion. And so, in essence, you're costing the federal government and costing taxpayers $100 million to provide health care to undocumented immigrants. Forgive me for being the guy who's got to come here and explain it. Forgive me for being the guy, because the media won't do it. That's the pushback. That's the argument. That's why Mike Johnson sounds so sure of himself. That's why Republicans sound so sure of themselves. That's why they feel like they can go out and they can sell this to their voters. You know why? Because Democrats can sell the exact same crap. That's why. That's why they know they can sell it. If we give you $1 billion and you really should only need $900 million if you weren't spending $100 million on something we don't agree you should be spending on, Republicans can sell that. If it's $100 million being spent on undocumented immigrants, the same way Democrats can sell it if it's $100 million being used to give tax cuts to the wealthy. Oh, let's think about that scenario. $1 billion goes to Florida for hurricane relief from the federal government, from federal taxpayers, from American taxpayers. The state of Florida gets $1 billion of tax money. At the same time, they decide they're going to give a tax cut to anybody making over $10 million a year in their state, to the tune of a cost of $100 million. Well, the first thing Democrats are going to say is, if you didn't give them that doggone tax cut, instead of $1 billion, we would have only had to give you $900 million. You've cost us $100 million. That's, people, we got to do better. That's the argument. We can go back in circles and go back and forth and go around in circles, arguing who's right and who's wrong. That's the argument. Republicans are not being totally honest and clear and forthcoming with their argument, and doggone it, Democrats are acting like they don't even know what the heck you're talking about. What is this? What are you saying? Huh? What? People in the country illegally are getting health care? From who? From who, pray tell? They're acting like they never even heard of it before. Well, listen to this.
Welcome back. California's Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom is catching quite a bit of attention by proposing to scale back free health care in California for undocumented immigrants. Under his new proposal, undocumented immigrants age 19 and older would no longer be able to apply for the state's Medi-Cal insurance program. This would start next year if approved.
Major Governor Gavin Newsom announced earlier this morning that California is currently facing a deficit of over $12 billion. And in order to ease some of these economic concerns and make up for the state revenue, he's proposing scaling back on a state program that allows undocumented immigrants to receive free health care. And this would apply to anyone living in the country illegally over 19 years or older, and this would also start as of January 2026. And what this means is that anyone who is already enrolled wouldn't necessarily be kicked out, but they would have to pay a monthly premium of $100. And what this also means is that any new enrollees would be banned from subscribing or entering this health program as of 2026.
I can't make this up. I can't make this stuff up. In the middle of all of this, right smack dab in the middle of this argument, Gavin Newsom, the new golden boy on the left, the guy who's taken the lead as the nominee for the Democrats in the next presidential election, had a budget shortfall in his state, and the first doggone thing he did to close that budget gap was to take health care away from undocumented immigrants. I can't make it up. Gavin Newsom, the guy who's been ripping Trump to shreds on social media, criticizing Donald Trump for what he's doing in regards to immigration, when his state, this is recent, this is this year, when his state faced a budget shortfall. The very first program he said he was going to cut was taking health care away from undocumented migrants. Or at the very least, saying you got to chip in. You got to pay $100 a month. You just heard the young lady in that segment. You got to pay. They're kind of going, oh, we're not going to take it away from the people who have it, but new people can't get on. We'll see. We'll see how that goes, whether or not it gets taken away from the people who have it. But at the very least, they're going to have to pay into it. Now, what do Democrats always say? Well, they're not going to be able to do it. They can't afford it. They're not going to qualify. They're not going to understand it. They're not going to get the paperwork done. Oh, it's going to be all sorts of barriers. They're going to lose their coverage. So it's the same doggone thing going on right now in California with Gavin Newsom. The same doggone thing. I can't make this up. How can no one talk about this? How come no one in the media provide this information? What is their purpose? What is their purpose if they don't provide this information? This is insane. Gavin Newsom is currently doing almost identically the exact thing they're criticizing and they have shut the government down for. Man, let's recap because I got to wrap up. And I feel like I've done another bad, convoluted show. Once again, this is a good YouTube one. I know sometimes YouTube, it's not as friendly for podcasting because you got to keep YouTube open. Some people, they just want to listen. They don't want to look at anything. They just want to listen. But if you have the opportunity, this is a good one where a lot of this stuff will make a lot more sense if you can see the visual, if you can see the sources of information that I'm providing for you. But to recap, the argument, the big argument in the media, can you please explain it? Can you please explain it so we understand it? Republicans are upset over programs that were put in place by the Biden administration to provide health care to people they don't think should be getting the health care. They also do not want to pay at the federal level for certain aspects of Obamacare subsidies. They have always hated Obamacare. They have always hated Obamacare subsidies. So it is not unusual for Republicans to say, look, we never liked it. We don't like it now. We ain't paying for it. Let the states pay for it. The federal government is not going to foot the bill for subsidies for Obamacare, particularly the ones that were extended during COVID. The other issue the Democrats have, they want to claw back money that was taken away from states as a result of Donald Trump unconstitutionally, if you will, taking away money that was appropriated by Congress. That's their strongest argument, if you ask me. That's their strongest argument. Once money is appropriated by Congress, the executive branch has no business taking that money away, reallocating that money. So that's the other thing they want to do. They want to get back money that was taken away in that fashion. The Republicans, for their part, once again, they're standing pat on what they think Donald Trump wants. People keep asking me, the Republicans, how can they? Republican, why don't they stand up to Donald Trump? Why don't they tell Donald Trump no? I just saw Bill Maher do a great segment where he basically said, Republicans, just tell Donald Trump no to one thing. Just say no to one thing. Stand up to Donald Trump on one thing. Well, can you please remember, and let's please be real about things. Let's look at the list of people who've stood up to Donald Trump and where they are now. Nikki Haley, Chris Christie, Mitt Romney, Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger. I mean, even Michael Cohen. Donald Trump's former lawyer. He stood up to Donald Trump. MSNBC had him on every day. Now, Michael Cohen can't get arrested out front of MSNBC. None of these people. Chris Christie, Kinzinger, he's on sometimes. Liz Cheney, you may see her pop her head up occasionally. But where's Nikki Haley? Where's Nikki? Was she working as a waitress somewhere? What's Chris Christie doing? Give Chris Christie a cooking show, for goodness sake, on MSNBC. You see what I'm saying? The Democrats, they loved all of these people during the campaign when they would come on and talk negatively about Donald Trump during the campaign. But once the election's over and Donald Trump wins, we don't see these people anymore. Don't expect Republicans to stick their neck out against Donald Trump if it goes badly and you drop them like a hot potato. Give me some incentive. Give me a reason to take that risk of going up against Donald Trump. That's the reality. You can think it's wrong or morally wrong or ethical or not ethical. That's the reality. I'm not going to stick my neck out and make myself an enemy of Donald Trump when I got no friends on the other side. And they don't. Tell me where Chris Christie has friends now on the other side. Tell me where Nikki Haley has friends now on the other side. So they're like a people with no party now. Who wants that? So stop asking why Republicans don't stick their neck out to go up against Donald Trump. What's the incentive to do it? There is none. You want them to do it? Give them incentive. Make them feel like they will be welcome as center-right, center-left people in your party if you want them to do it. Make them feel like there's going to be opportunity. There's going to be a home for them. Make Joe Manchin feel like there's a home for him. There's a place in the Democratic Party. Doggone it, make people like that feel like there's a home for them in the Democratic Party. Right now, there isn't. There is no feeling that there is a home for anybody on the center right that would stand up to Donald Trump in the Democratic Party. So don't expect them to. Oh, what else? Okay, I also wanted to talk about, I got to get to my solutions. Because this is a solutions, ideas, suggestion podcast. You can't just sit and rant. You just can't sit and carry on. You just can't point fingers of blame. You got to at least say, okay, well, if I think they're doing it wrong, how would I do it? I just explained to you how I think the media should be explaining what's going on as far as the shutdown. But I have to ask this question advisingly to Democrats. I'm asking this advisingly. I'm asking you to tell me. I want you to explain this to me. I'm not asking this question rhetorically. What is your end game? What is your end game to this shutdown? Because allow me to play it out for you under the best case scenario. The best case scenario for Democrats. From the time Donald Trump stepped back into the White House, the Democrats' goal has been, we got to fight. We got to fight. We got to fight him on everything. We cannot yield a single inch to Donald Trump. That's the position. We cannot allow him to be a successful president. Not successful for his policy goals. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. I'm not saying Democrats want the country to fail, but they certainly don't want Donald Trump to succeed. And so this shutdown is part of that strategy, correct? Okay, best case scenario. Let's say it works. Let's say it hurts Donald Trump, makes him less popular. The Republicans get blamed. The midterm elections come, and there's a blue tsunami. Forget about a blue wave. There's a blue tsunami that sweeps Democrats into the House, Democrats into the Senate. They take supermajorities in both chambers. As a result, Donald Trump snaps. He finally snaps. He goes crazy. He comes out and he orders the National Guard to shoot people down in the streets of Chicago. So he gets impeached. He gets impeached by this new supermajority Democratic Congress. They have not only the power to impeach him, but to remove him. Donald Trump's removed. You got J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance, it turns out he's in the Epstein files. Theoretically, he's in the Epstein files. He resigns in disgrace. Now you got Speaker Mike Johnson next in line. He says, look, I didn't even want to be Speaker of the House. I sure don't want to be president. He steps aside. In the chaos, the Democrats have so much power, they amend the Constitution to have an emergency election early in 2026. And as a result, Gavin Newsom and Alexandria, Bernie Sanders, Arm Candy, Ocasio-Cortez are elected the new president and vice president of the United States of America. Everything's fixed now, right? No, nothing is fixed. Nothing is fixed. We're still in chaos. It's just another form of chaos. Now everything is flipped. Now everything that the right is saying about the left will be saying about it's everything will just be don't work with Gavin Newsom. Don't work with Gavin Newsom. Don't let him succeed at anything. Fight him on every step. Fight him every step of the way. Yeah, people out there put country before party. But country before party is what they'll be saying on the left all of a sudden. We can't believe there are people out there rooting against the president, rooting against the country is what people on the left will be out there saying. Everything the right's saying now, it'll just flip. That's all. We can't have that. We can't have this sort of animosity and quote unquote fight going on everything. We just can't. Even for Donald Trump. I was talking to my dad off air, not on the podcast. I wish I brought it up on the podcast. And I said, Dad, why are you always complaining so much about Donald Trump and your Social Security when Donald Trump has actually increased your Social Security? Why do you keep saying Donald Trump's going to take away your Social Security? He's increased your Social Security. My dad said, oh, no, he hasn't. What are you talking about? No, he hasn't. And I said, no, Dad, yes, he has. The big, beautiful bill, one of the things in that was going to be you're going to get more money. No tax on Social Security. Now, once again, shame on the media. I had to look it up. I had to clarify it to understand it myself. There is no tax on Social Security. That is not what it is. No tax on Social Security. What it is up to a $6,000 tax credit that seniors can take that may or may not lower their taxes, the Social Security taxes. You understand? So it's not Social Security benefits are not taxed at all. It's a credit they can take that will in all likelihood lessen their tax burden or maybe even give them more money back in the form of a refund if they're on Social Security. So, in other words, it is more money for seniors on Social Security. It will be more money when they file their taxes, but it's not necessarily no tax on Social Security. But that's something that my dad had no idea. He had no clue. He said, why aren't Republicans talking about this? I said, Dad, they talk about it all the time. They talk about it all the time on Fox News, but you don't watch Fox News. They talk about the no tax on Social Security, which isn't really that, but the no tax on tips, the no tax on overtime. They talk about the increased child care credit that was included in the big, beautiful bill. They talk about Donald Trump going after the cartels, blowing up the boats. I got no problem with Donald Trump blowing up boats. I have no idea why Democrats have a problem with Donald Trump blowing up boats. I got no problem. They talk all the time about Donald Trump's foreign policy achievements. You know doggone good and well they ain't going to be talking about nothing but the foreign policy achievement of ending the Israeli-Hamas war. If this ceasefire holds, if this agreement holds, and Israel gets the hostages back, living or unfortunately deceased, but gets the hostages back, if this plays out the way I think we would all hope it plays out, and the killing ends, well, you know Donald Trump is going to deserve some credit for that. He has to be given some credit for that, doesn't he? And so I've talked about this for months now. For months. You're never going to win against Donald Trump if you decide to make every single aspect of his presidency a negative. You're not going to win. At some point, Democrats have to accept that they're going to have to concede some sort of olive branch. They're going to have to extend some sort of olive branch to Donald Trump, whether it be the foreign policy achievement in the Middle East, whether it be the success at the border. Just reported, border crossings lowest since the 70s. No one's arguing that. No one's saying that's misinformation coming from Fox News or coming from Kristi Noem. Lowest border crossings since the 70s. Democrats are going to have to offer an olive branch on that and see if they can take that and build that into some sort of a consensus on what they can do on other things where they can have a meeting of the minds. Because, as I said, Donald Trump wants to be a successful president. He wants to be a successful president. You may not agree with all the policies that he thinks will make him successful, but you doggone sure got to agree with some of them. You got to agree with some of them. You got to agree that you want prices to come down and the economy to be strong and people to not lose their jobs and people to have health care. You got to agree with that. Donald Trump says he's okay with certain people staying in the country to work, immigrants staying in the country. You got to be okay with that. Donald Trump says he wants to cut taxes for everyday working Americans. You got to be okay with that. That was part of the big, beautiful bill. It didn't just cut taxes for rich people. It extended the tax cuts for everyone. For everyone, including low-income and middle earners. You got to be okay with that. It's just a matter of time. I'd be willing to bet money on this. It's just a matter of time before ICE conducts a raid and busts up a child trafficking ring. It's just a matter of time. It's going to happen. It'll be a child trafficking ring or it'll be some big, huge drug ring that ICE will bust up. You got to be okay with that. At the same time, we're getting these stories about kids being yanked out of bed naked and zip-tied and all this carrying on. At the same time, we're getting those stories. The other stories are taking place elsewhere. People are seeing those stories. People are hearing those stories about violent criminals being taken out of the country. Just because Democrats want the narrative to be that ICE is the Gestapo, just because they want that to be the narrative, just because that's the narrative they push in their media, does not mean there's not media that exists elsewhere. And the media that exists elsewhere does not like this selective enforcement that Democrats seem to be in favor of. Because that's exactly what it is. It's a selective enforcement. Democrats are saying, hey, no, we're fine. Get the criminals out. But the people here working, not committing any crimes, leave them be. Well, that's selective enforcement. Well, you can't be tough on crime, but soft on the punishment. You just can't be. And we heard it. We heard it all from Kamala and Joe, telling people, oh, don't come here. Don't come to this country. And telling us they negotiated the toughest border bill, bipartisan border bill. And Kamala telling us that the very first thing we did, Joe and I did, is we offered an immigration reform bill to the Republicans when we came into office. We're going to hire more Border Patrol agents. We're in favor of a secure border, too. You can't be all that and then turn into the party of ISIS the Gestapo. Trump secured the border. Good for him. Good for him. Almost upset that the border is actually secure. Trump has flipped the conversation. Trump has flipped the conversation on the border by securing the border. Democrats are going to have to come up with a new conversation. And that conversation is going to have to be taking a tough stance on immigration, a tougher stance at least than they have been taking, and a tougher stance on health care for certain people. They're going to have to accept that no matter how this shutdown plays out. If you're hardworking, you're in the country illegally, you're going to have to come out of the shadows. You're going to have to pay a fee, not just a fee for coming into the country illegally, because people who go through the legal process, they pay thousands of dollars to go through the legal process. Why shouldn't the people who come into the country illegally have to pay some sort of penalty? Why shouldn't they have to learn English if they intend to remain in an English-speaking country? These are all things that Barack Obama was okay with. These are all things that Barack Obama put into a bill. Come out of the shadows, get to the back of the line, pay a penalty, speak English. All things he was okay with. The Democratic Party, I don't know what they've become on immigration and why they think it's working for them. But they need to get back more in line with where Barack Obama was when he was being called the deporter-in-chief. They do that, maybe they can end the shutdown. Once they do that, once they concede some things to Trump, and I hate using that word concede because that ruffles people's feathers, whatever you want to call it, whatever word works for you other than concede. Once they offer the olive branch to Trump, perhaps it will open the door to some negotiations on pulling back on some of the actions from ICE. It opens the doors to how we can reasonably provide health care to everyone. Because I understand the argument. If they're going to be here, they should have health care. It makes all of us safer and healthier. So we have to expand things like telehealth into those communities. We need Spanish-speaking people to expand telehealth to cut down on some of the doctor's visits or emergency room visits. We have to expand the opportunity for people to have a doctor, a primary care physician for their children, to cut down on people using the emergency room as their personal private doctor. These are all things that have to be discussed and worked out and worked on. But how can we do it under the circumstances we're in right now? I just painted you the best case scenario that could ever play out for the Democrats if you get every single thing you want to happen. Do you think any of that could be negotiated with President Gavin Newsom and Vice President Alexandria Bad Bunny as my cousin Ocasio-Cortez? Do you think they could negotiate any of that with a Republican Congress? No, they couldn't. So you tell me how something is a victory for the country if we go through all of this and end up right back where we are right now. Ooh, that's the episode. Longer than I wanted as usual, but I hope you enjoyed it. The Comparison Guy Podcast.
Shame burning, you keep my whole body yearning. You got me so confused, it's a shame. Sometimes
listen on Apple Podcasts, listen on Spotify, watch on YouTube.
I wanna stay.
Ooh, listen to that. Ooh, feet don't fail me now. Watch me go. Here I go. Can't do these dance moves. Can't do these dance moves on your best day, not in your dreams. Watch this. 7 backflips. Here we go. I broke my hip. Thanks for listening. Please share. Please comment. Please rate. I hope you do. I love it when you do. And I will see you next time.